I thought we'd take a look at a company that's obviously been in the news quite a bit over the last 12 months. It's Moderna, one of the manufacturers of a COVID-19 vaccination. The share price clearly has done really well over the last 12 months or so, but is there more to come? This month has seen all-time highs yet again for the Moderna stock price, trading up above $225 a share at the beginning of June. It's slipped back a bit since then, slipped back below $200, but still, of course, massively up from where it was a year ago, around the $60 mark. So as usual, I thought, well, let's take a look at some of the recent news, some of what's coming up for Moderna, then jump back into this chart and take a look at the technicals in a bit more detail. Hello, I'm David Jones from Capital.com, and I thought this time around, the stock we'd focus on, one that's been in the news a lot, understandably, over the last 12 months, and it's the US pharma stock, Moderna. So as usual in this video, I'll talk a bit about the recent news, the share price performance, the earnings, the outlook, then we will jump back onto the platform and take a look at the technical chart viewpoint in a bit more detail. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, if you could click on subscribe, it does help support the channel, and it means we can continue pushing out lots of different content throughout the week on the different stocks that we look at and that are of interest to people, to our subscribers. Right, let's get into it. Let's take a look at Moderna in a bit more detail. So as I said, it's a US pharmaceutical and biotechnology company specifically focused on vaccine technologies. Of course, it's one of the companies that's come up with a vaccine for COVID-19, for the coronavirus, and it was the second company in the US after Pfizer to be approved to supply the vaccine. This has had a great performance for the company's stock price, which had been, I think, fairly uneventful until about a year and a half ago. But over the last 12 months, since June 2020, we've seen the stock rise by more than 200%, recently setting again fresh all-time highs. Its latest earnings announcement was back in May, and it said it had made its first quarterly profit ever, mainly thanks, of course, to its COVID-19 vaccine product. But the market reaction was negative. The shares slid fairly immediately after that, and that was in reaction to the US government saying that it would support efforts to waive protections for vaccine patents to try and, of course, get as many vaccines out as possible. And of course, if you're a vaccine manufacturer, that's something that potentially is going to harm your sales. But after that wobble, following the earnings, we have seen the shares moved higher, and just this month they've moved out yet again to fresh all-time highs. What's also interesting, and again clearly could have an impact on the share price, the company has said later this year a booster will be available for those who've already had 2 shots of the vaccine. So that potentially opens up another market again of going back and effectively revaccinating people with the booster. So that could have a major impact on sales. But Moderna isn't just about the COVID-19 vaccine. It also has other vaccinations in the pipeline that could still come to market and help the business. But considering how far the share price has risen, has it gone far enough? Is it fully valued? Let's take a look at some of the levels to watch, then we'll jump back onto the platform. So I think the most immediate hurdle, the obvious next target, if we were going to be bullish from here, is that all-time high set earlier this month at $220 a share. After that, looking on the downside, lots of support left. I think the most immediate one off the daily charts coming in around $190. That was the previous all-time highs. We'll see those in a second. After that, it's the lows from last month, down at $143 a share. But as usual, let's put some color on these numbers. Let's jump on the platform and take a look at things in a bit more detail. So here's the chart of Moderna going back to March 2020. So going back about 15 months or so. We have an obvious trend, I think, but more of that in a second. Let's talk about, first of all, the moving average. So as usual, 20-day moving average on here. And if you remember, when a market or a stock moves above the moving average, like here, for example, November last year, it's considered a buy signal. And when the price moves below the moving average, for example, here in February of this year, it's considered a sell signal. The latest signal we had off the moving average, the 20-day moving average for Moderna, was at the end of May as the price crossed through about $170 a share, crossing above the 20-day moving average, gave us a buy signal. It hasn't given a sell signal yet. I think what's interesting, over the last couple of days, the sell-off we've seen in Moderna has held for now above that 20-day moving average. And they can sometimes act as a sort of floating support level or resistance level for stock prices. So at the moment, that 20-day moving average is coming in around about 192 a share. So it'd be interesting to see if it continues to provide something of a floor. Let's take a look at the 10-day RSI down here. On that latest run up to those fresh all-time highs at the beginning of June, the RSI went overbought, suggesting that perhaps the price has gone far enough. This did prove to be the case so far. I don't think we're getting too much from the RSI at the moment. It's almost slap bang in the middle between overbought and oversold. So if we got a bit more weakness from the Moderna stock price, we could see that RSI tick back, tick down, and perhaps eventually give us a buy signal like down here at the end of March, or say the stock is oversold at least, but not too much from the RSI at the moment. So what I want to focus on now is the trend. Let's take a look at the price action. So I've picked up here on, appropriately enough, the lows from March of 2020, when of course we saw markets just fall off a cliff because of the global spread and lockdowns because of the coronavirus. Clearly a great performance since then. That longer term trend line accelerated away from that trend line in November last year, came pretty close back to it, I suppose, in December and also in March. It's a way away at the moment, but that longer term trend line is coming in just above $100 a share. So again, from a pure charting point of view, even if it falls back to, 120 from where it is now, that longer term trend remains untouched. So from a longer term technical point of view, the purest approach would still be to be a buyer on dips. It'd need to break $100 at the moment to suggest this trend off the March lows is still over. That's perhaps not too relevant when the stock's trading almost $100 above that. So let's pick up on this shorter term trend off the late March lows. So I think this is a really interesting one. This is an hourly chart. So we're looking at some of the intraday trading now for Moderna over, what is it, it's not quite the last 3 months, is it? The last 2.5 months or so for Moderna. So there's our trend off the March lows. And I think from a pure charting point of view, that trend line's coming in around 190. So if that trend is going to hold, we'd expect to see some strength coming in from Moderna around these levels. So it's a really interesting one to watch, I think, over the next week or so to see if we do see support coming in at 190. I suppose if we started to slip below that, the risk is for a deeper sell-off. I think 190 is an important level anyway, because it was the previous all-time high that we saw in early May, or an important high from early May at least. So I think 190 is the level to focus on at the moment for Moderna. That trend is still up. Be really interesting to see if we can get a bounce again ahead of this shorter term trend line and go back and perhaps have a look at those old highs just ahead of $230 a share. That's it for our look at Moderna. We'll come back to them over the course of the next couple of months and see how things are performing. But for now, from me, David Jones and Capital.com, we'll leave things there. Good luck with your investing. For more trading videos just like this, please subscribe to our channel.